Well, hello and welcome to another edition of Borders Rugby in Focus, and my guest today, along with Dale Clancy, of course, Stuart Johnson from Gala, and also Graeme Dodds from Melrose. You've played in quite a few matches, Gala against Melrose. So what were your highlights?
There's been lots of big games, to be honest. You know, Melrose Gala games are always big, whether you're from Melrose or Gala. It's a big grudge derby, isn't it? And 3 miles apart, it's always going to be. And I think the highlight for me was when we played at Netherdale, when sort of two teams on top of the Premiership going head to head, and that was the George Graham era, and Gary Graham and young George playing, and big OP and Fish Dodds and these boys. They're really good squad then, and so did we. We were sort of first and second in the league, and Gala were up with the last couple of plays of the game, and we had James King and Jamie Murray in the centre, and they got it through the hands eventually to my big brother Alan, who tore up the wing and scored for the last play of the game to beat Gala at Netherdale. So it
by a point.
Quietened the crowd, and it was, from a Melrose point of view, that was just heaven for us.
Absolutely. In fact, I think the Melrose Club have actually put that try out at the moment with the theme to Titanic on there as well, and it works quite well, I think.
What was even better after that try was when Pussy Bell went up the street and to the old mill in Gala and reenacted the commentary from start to finish of the try, like the Bill McLaren 1990 try. He did it for Alan Dodds in the corner. So that's a story he'll tell himself.
Now, of course, the Melrose Gala games, always feisty occasions. You've had a few yellow cards in your time, haven't you, in these games?
I don't think so.
I think you have, actually.
One
or two.
There's always tensions are riding high in these games. There's a lot at stake, and there's a lot of bragging rights at stake, and it's a league match at the end of the day as well. National 1, both teams top end of the table, and there'll be no love lost on Saturday, but also it's important that they pick up 4 or 5 points from the game.
And of course you have been retired for a little while now, but there are moves to get you back playing again. How's that going?
They're trying. I think I've just turned 38. I think, and been finished for 4.5 seasons, and I think you can play as a 38-year-old if you've never stopped. I think that's the difference. But if you've stopped for a long time, and I've tried a couple of times, just at training, not to come back and play, just to train, just to keep fit, and the body doesn't like it. It just screams at me for weeks. So I'd love to. My heart would love to play again for Melrose and pull on the Rose again, but it's probably not going to happen. You
were talking to Peter Palapoy, who's now with Melrose, of course, after a long time at Gala, and isn't there a deal between you that if one goes back, the other has to? Well,
I joked to OP when he first came down. I says, when you pulling the boots on, he says, well, Doddsy, if you play, I'll play. And he was being deadly serious. So,
are you serious about that?
You never say never. Never say never.
Oh, that's
we'll
good.
See.
Now, of course, a couple of weeks ago, a lot of people, Craig Borthwick playing for Biggar, and one or two people did mention, we miss Graeme Dodds here. That could have made the difference.
Well, I mean, I think obviously with the players we've got this year, we've got a really good young squad. I think probably what we are lacking is a big sort of hard line out middle row that we've had in the past, and we've basically got 7 or 8 quality back row forwards, young, keen back row forwards, and we're having to kind of ask a couple of those guys every week to move forward, play in the second row, which for some games is great because you've got a mobile pack, but for other games it doesn't quite suit, like Hartree Mill, on a Saturday afternoon when the rain was coming sideways at 20 miles an hour. We could have done with slightly, heavier pack there with a bit more weight and a bit more options in the line out, but that's what we've got. We've got a quality squad. We're just maybe missing that middle row. It's funny, when Borth came off the pitch and I shook his hand, he said, I thought I was going to get one more go with you today, Doddsy, but nah, not that one.
And he loves the rain and the mud, doesn't he?
Well, he loves it, and the thing was, that was a game where you probably could have got away with it being an old man playing, because the pace of the game was so slow because the conditions were so bad. But hindsight's a wonderful thing.
Now, we've got Jono here with us today, and what are your memories of playing with him at Melrose?
Well, I went when Jono first came up to this part of the world. He came to the high school at Earlston, and we were pals right through high school, and started off under 18 stuff and right through. And obviously, first few games for the first was probably in the same squad as Jono, and moved forward with him and played the similar position. And it was good times and had a lot of success together.
And now, of course, things are very, very different because Jono is back at Gala now. Of course, a lot of people have always thought that you were a Melrose person, but in fact, that wasn't actually true because you went to school at Gala, didn't you?
Yeah, that's right. As Doddsy said, when I first moved up here from down south, I was 2 and lived in Gala. Went to Borough Primary School and about 6 months at Gala Academy before I moved across to Earlston. So it's I first started playing rugby at Gala through Borough Primary School and then at the academy for a couple of months.
Well, my first memory of you, I think, was at the Cup final, and there was Kieran Cooney on the touchline as well, and he was rather emotional at the end. In fact, everybody was emotional. It was quite some day, that.
Yeah, it was a really good day. I think that was the first time we'd won anything at Melrose, like league or cup for a good number of years, and obviously Doddsy was there. But you're right, Cooney and Big John Dale were on the sideline band at the time. But back
in the Chalmers era.
Yeah, it was Chick that was coaching at the time. But no, that was a really good day. Really successful season that season, winning the Scottish Cup, and I say it's good times back then. But as you say, I've moved on now.
Absolutely, but we must mention about playing with Graeme. You must have a few stories to tell.
Got a number of stories, yeah, but that's that's just saying what goes on tour stays on tour. So we'll keep that between us.
What about the ones on the pitch then?
Yeah, look, as I say, great times back at Melrose during my playing days. Obviously, Graeme managed to get over the 300 games. I think I was 260 odd. So we played a lot together, as I say, through high school, representative rugby, and majority of the time at Melrose. And you look at some of the success that the clubs had during that period, and they continued on that after I finished when Doddsy was still running the boot. Yeah, great memories, and I'll never forget my time at Melrose.
So you're a first team coach at Melrose, and then of course pre-COVID it was a move to Hawick, and now you're back at Gala again. What actually is your position? Is it line-outs?
Yeah, forwards coach at
Forwards
Gala,
coach, yeah.
Yeah, so Bill obviously worked with Bill Noble and Fraz previously in Known Fish. They just gave me a call when I became available and went down, and next thing I knew I was Gala t-shirt. And down there every Tuesday, Thursday, just putting my part across to the boys.
Absolutely. So there'll be no love lost on Saturday.
No, there won't. No, I've still got a lot of great friends at Melrose, coaches, players. That won't change. But for 80 minutes, it's I've got a job to do, and that job is to go and get 4 or 5 points for Gala and keep us on our winning streak that we're on at the moment. Which, I would say things are going really well, but it's a different story on Saturday. We
always talk about border derbies and what are the best ones. You know, I would say Gala Melrose is probably the granddaddy of them all. Is that true, do you think?
Yeah, I think in my playing time as well, there were always two of the teams that were certainly up there in Scottish rugby. The game that Doddsy was on about there as well was when they're both at their peak of their powers, really dominating the club scene. And I think on paper as well, the history that Melrose have and the success they've had, and the impact that Gala have had as well to the whole landscape of Scottish rugby is certainly up there. But we've got an abundance of really good fiery derbies in the borders. You chuck Hawick into the mix, who can play either team, and in recent years that's been another big derby as well. And then back in time, you've obviously got the likes of Jed and Kelso who had big ding dongs, years gone by. But the current landscape, since probably professionalism came in, you'd probably say that Melrose versus Gala is the pinnacle, you would say. For your own point of view, it was bigger, wasn't it? Peebles and bigger. Again, they looked at it as a derby, but it's difficult. I think it's always difficult when you play Peebles because you're almost like the ugly stepsister of the borders. You're always like on the outside, but derby matches are what they are. They're feisty battles. They're sometimes a little bit slower in terms of the pace. They can be really, really niggly. But you just hope on Saturday you get nice playing conditions. Both teams have a lot of good attacking running talent in both sides. Watched Gala a few weeks ago against Kelso, really good for long stages of the game, but maybe not able to control it for some other parts, but managed to get the win. And Melrose started the season really, really well, but have drifted off ever so slightly in the last few weeks. So it's one that's very difficult to call. Both teams really, really close in the league, so it's going to be a really good test for both sides. Well, much more on that a little bit later on. We'll be talking about Super 6 as well, and the rules and regulations, because that's a bit of a talking point at the moment. But first of all, we're going to have a look back at what happened at the weekend, and we must start with
with the Super 6 final, the Fosrock Super 6 final. Southern Knights 16, Ayrshire Bulls 26, and as Bob Christie said himself, Ayrshire Bulls deserve to win. Yeah, they were quicker to the party, I think, than what the Southern Knights were. And as soon as Ayrshire Bulls kind of got that lead and got their authority, the Southern Knights had a difficult battle to try and get back into it. They started to make a little bit of a fist of it, but then after a while, Ayrshire Bulls just turned the screw again, started to get away, and it was an uphill battle. And I feel that those games are always tight. Ayrshire and Melrose in the past, or Ayr and Melrose is club scene, but Ayrshire Bulls versus the Southern Knights, you know, a lot of the time it's whoever can win the battle up front and whoever can win those, you know, the small wins at the breakdown and set piece. And I think Ayrshire Bulls were just maybe a little bit more on form on the day. Disappointing for the Southern Knights to go a whole season, you know, finish top of the pile and then go into a final and lose it there. But that's the way that, you know, when you get out up to semi-pro rugby and professional rugby, that's the way the league structures are mostly. So you've got to win those big games as well. And on this occasion, the Southern Knights just kind of fell short. Now, Graeme, what about your own thoughts on Super 6?
I think it's been a good initiative. I think that they did it for the right reasons. You know, the SRU made a call a few years back that, you know, there was that kind of missing gap between sort of the club game and up into the pro ranks with Edinburgh and Glasgow, and they wanted to fill that gap with a Super 6. And my only negative is it guys don't get enough rugby for me, especially guys on the fringes. And even the full squad, you know, it's great going down to Melrose and watching the Knights train, because the quality is very, very high, and watching their games, it's very physical. So that's certainly where they're plugging that gap. It's a lot more physical than the club scene is, certainly. So you've got that physicality for guys to be able to step up. But I just don't think some of these guys are getting enough rugby. You know, I think guys on the fringes, you know, for example, we've got like the Kieran Clark, you know, who quality at Melrose, got signed, great for him. You know, it's a stepping stone for him, and hasn't played a lot of rugby. Not criticising coaches or anything, it's just the way it works out. You know, you can't play everybody every week. So there is that sort of little negative niggle for me, is that some of these young kids are not getting enough exposure to actual game time.
We've been exposed to, you know, this great talent from the 6 clubs. It's now kind of stopped, and we're wanting a bit more, aren't we? We want to know what's happening. There's lots of things going on behind the scene that we're not party to, but surely before too long we will get to know what the next step is, effectively.
Yeah, nobody really knows, as you say, what the next step is, and I think obviously when they're going to kick off back after the new year for their season starting in February, I think. So what's all these guys going to do for the next sort of 4 months? That's sort of unanswered questions just now. I'm not sure. I think guys that are not going to sign, you know, for next season are going to be able to come back and play for the clubs. But there was also talk of there being a draft. So the Super 6 players would go into a draft where they would then be allocated to the Premiership clubs. It won't affect Gala or Melrose this season, but the Premiership clubs would get a pick at these players. So, but it was always going to be like we used to do with the professional ranks when they used to come back. It was only ever if it was equal numbers. You could only ever have one more professional in your team than the opposition. So I think it's going to be similar. I think they have to match up. So if there's 3 available for a hike or something in the Premiership, the team they're playing against have to have 3 as well, or they won't be allowed them.
It's in the competition rules, I believe, on the SRU website, that players now can go and play Premiership rugby. If they're in contract, no more than a difference of 2 between the teams, same as the Scottish Rugby Academy Stage 3 guys drop into the Premiership. I believe that any guys that are out of contract, as Doddsy says, can go and play wherever they want. I think it's 3 players, and from that point on, I don't think they can go back to a Super 6 contract for a period of time. So it's in the rules. That's up for the SRU to decide, and obviously the clubs. For me, if guys are dropping back into out of contract, especially this time of the season, on a personal note, it's a difficult conversation to have with a player that's getting left out. So you've competed pre-season, you've played 6 games, and then these guys drop back into club rugby, and automatically your players are then having to move down to seconds rugby, which is stopping them playing rugby at the level they're used to. It's just a difficult conversation as a coach to have with a player, but that's up to each individual club to deal with that. And I say it's certainly in line with the rules that the Scottish Rugby have put into place.
It was really a bit like what happened with the young twins when they were signed to Scotland Sevens, and they were flown all over the world, and a lot of it was on the bench. But of course, when it came to the Commonwealth Games, the big boys came in, the international players like Hoggy and Lee Jones and stuff came in as well, and the younger members of the Sevens squad said, right, okay, well, thank you, but you're not required anymore. And it is difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really difficult. As Dudley says, these guys need to play rugby as well. So it's when you've got 12 games in a season, and they finish mid-October and there's still club rugby going on. It is difficult for these guys to then sit back and watch when there's games going on that they could potentially play in. And as Graeme said, there's big 35-man squads in these Super 6 teams that young guys need to get regular rugby. But again, you've got the guys that are playing club rugby that some of these guys might miss out because of these players stepping back in. It's a difficult choice for clubs to make, and I say it's up to each individual club to make that decision if these players do become available.
Let's get back into what happened over the weekend, and the big derby was Hawick against Jed Forest. Hawick really wrapping it up very early in the second half, going 24-0 clear, and really took the whole game to Jed Forest. And Jed Forest came back very gamely, tremendous work rate and a lot of territory in possession, but they couldn't break down the Hawick defence.
Yeah, I think Hawick were very quick out the traps. I think they looked up for the fight from the start and really, got the game by the scruff of the neck, went in a really big lead, and then started to take their foot off the gas slightly. I felt they lost control. They were really dictating with the boot of Donaldson and Kirk Ford as well. They were kicking really, really well, putting Hawick in really good positions. Jed's set piece wasn't firing. They were giving up sloppy ball, but then Hawick just kind of sat back off them. I think when the opportunity came to get the bonus point, I feel they maybe made changes too quickly. Graeme Hogg was also speaking about that when we were doing the commentary. But Jed, for me, just felt like they were trying to ask too much of individuals without actually working hard for it. Now, I said on commentary as well, I like Jed as a team. I think they've got an abundance of talent there, but I felt they were almost looking for the players to do too much without actually putting them in the right position. Rory Marshall, you hardly seen the whole game. There was a couple of occasions where he popped up and he had slow cuts with Gregor Young on the outside, and I felt like it really slowed them down. So I felt like they were really struggling to try and find a way to break down Hawick, which then when they did start getting back into it, you never really truly believed that Jed were going to come back and win it. And I think that's been a little bit of story of their season. They then have good spells and then long difficult spells, but Hawick in the end worthy of the win. They'll be really disappointed they never got the bonus point, I feel, but it keeps them up towards the top of the Prem and keeping a bit of pressure on.
Selkirk disappointing again, 17-5 up against Embrackis, losing it 27-24.
Yes, and actually I went into the Selkirk club rooms after the game with Matty Carrier, who's obviously the Hawick captain, and having a bit of chat with the folk in there, and Scott McClymont was actually one of the players who I think had a really, really good performance. I think he's in the team of the week for the offside line, but he did drop the ball over the try line, and I think at the time the game wasn't there to be won, but in hindsight, when the final result came in, that could have been a try that could have got a very good result for Selkirk. So disappointing for Selkirk to run them so close, but in the end it's an Edinburgh's win. I think they went into that game as favourites and they just snuck away with the win.
And that was their first away win of the season as well.
Yeah, they're similar to Hawick. They're playing well at home but not well on the road. Hawick with their win against Aberdeen Grammar. So they've not. Hawick have made Mansfield Park a bit of a fortress, and Edinburgh's are the same. First win on the way on the road. Selkirk probably played them at a good time. Still missing a lot of personnel in their squad, but it's one of those games that's probably just slipped through the fingers of Selkirk, and it's going to take them a bit of time to get all the players back to get firing again.
A quick look at National 1. Watsonians lost 50-0 at Netherdale against Gala. Highland 26, Melrose 20. And Kelso, they'll be really disappointed. Another loss for them at a crucial time against Heriots, going down 34 points to 22. Yeah,
the Gala result, I think we can all gloss over that because it was one that was coming. I think Watsonians are really poor, and I think 50 points, Gala obviously putting a good performance there. I think really they've got a good brand of rugby now, Gala. Melrose disappointed with a loss against Highland. Ross Thompson playing for Highland as well. Done an interview on social media saying about the noise up at Highland. So obviously good home support, but the big result's Kelso. We've been talking about them for the last few weeks about how they're kind of putting together a challenge to kind of push up towards the top of the league, and they're just starting to fall off now, especially against Heriots. I feel Heriots have slowly grown into the league this year as well. The win against Ayr the previous week. have started to find a little bit of form, and maybe they're going to be one of those teams that are going to, maybe not push up towards the top by the end of the season, but they'll certainly have a big say on who's going to be getting promoted and the movers and shakers in that one.
Peebles came back to win with the last kick of the match. Rayburn from the touchline, I believe, 31-30 at Falkirk. Great result for them, and in a tight league that now puts them up into 4th place, but a lot of teams around them.
Yeah, it's a difficult league, as we've spoke about for the last few weeks. It was Linton Brink, I think, got the last 2 tries for Peebles in quite tight quarters. They did give away a couple of sloppy tries from what I'm hearing, and just looking at some of the stuff on the Falkirk website as well. Some just broken field running, first up tackles, so Peebles will be disappointed with that, but I did see the kick as well. I seen it played back. I think Greg Rayburn maybe showed me about 34 times the other
Just the 34 times?
Yeah. His battery ran out. And it was a peach of a conversion. We know how good a kicker he is, and to a pressure kick, you need that 2 points to win away from home. It was an excellent conversion. It's a really good win for Peebles.
And the thing about Peebles, of course, in the last 4 weeks they have played 3 undefeated teams, and Falkirk who are up there as well. So they've had a real month of top quality rugby, and coming out pretty much on top at the end of it. Now they go into a period where they're playing like Gordonians, I think, this coming Saturday, and they should get points there. Although, a word of warning, Gordonians did beat Kirkcaldy, and Kirkcaldy beat Peebles.
You've obviously never played for Peebles before then. It's one of those things, if you win in these games, in the big games, you need to be able to back it up. And I think the land of where Peebles are now, in the league that they're in, is an illustration of what's happened over the last few years. They lose players, they don't get great player commitment over the last few years. This has been, probably COVID maybe stopped them. I think they're really building a head of steam with the personnel that they had. But you need to back that up against the teams like Gordonians. It's a difficult league. I think GHK are the outright favourites in that league. They're well coached. They've got ex-Air players and professionals in there, so they're a really difficult side. But if you're getting these wins against these big teams in the league, round about the competitive teams away from home, it puts you in a good stead, because it's a marathon. You need to be picking up these points. But Gordonians at home, they'll be hoping to pick up a win there and keep the pressure up the top, because, again, mental games, mind games when it comes into playing these fixtures later on in the season. It's all about league position and keeping your players fit as well.
Well, in the East League, we have 5 teams in there. All 5 lost. That includes Langham, who went to Dunbar, and their unbeaten record disappeared. They'll be disappointed with that, but of course they get an opportunity to regroup, and they're at home again this week.
When you return to home, it's a good chance to try and re-galvanise and pick up a win again and get the kind of wheels back on the bus, because they have been going really well, especially in such a big year as we've mentioned before. So it's disappointing for them, but they're going to have to get back on the horse and try and go again, because it's a surprising big win for Dunbar, but obviously it's just a bad day at the office for Langham, and they're going to have to try and galvanise themselves.
Must mention, of course, Melrose Wasps at Kelso Quins, and we started off the evening with 3 unbeaten sides. We ended it with 2. Melrose Wasps, a really good win for them, 28-5, and again out of the blocks really quick.
I was really impressed with the level of rugby. If I think back to semi-junior rugby and the pace it was played at and the style of rugby, I was completely blown away by the way that game went. I think Melrose, they played with a structure, a style, a direction. They had individual brilliance, but they also had team chemistry. I think the likes of Finn Douglas, who played at outside centre, Flanagan at inside centre, the partnership there was really, really impressive. Obviously, Tooney's son at fly half controlled the game well, but the props, we've seen one of the props do a grubber kick. Robinson got a try as well, showing a good bit of pace. The Melrose team were standout. They were really, really good. Difficult team to beat this season. But even in the Kelso ranks, there was a few good players. Bradley Adams started really well at fullback for Kelso. Fell off a little bit, but there was a lot of good players on the Kelso side as well. But I think maybe that league's now starting to level out. Hoyk and Melrose Wasps are going to be the 2 teams that are going to battle it out for that title, and it'll be a great match when they both meet in a couple of weeks' time. That's
right, 29th, I do believe, down at Volunteer Park. And that's going to be under the lights on the Friday night there, the 29th. Well, let's have a look now in more detail at the big game for this week, the big derby. It's Melrose against Gala. So how's the build-up going for this one?
It's good. Yeah, we had a good session last night. Tuesday night was a pretty honest assessment of how Saturday went up at Highland. Hopefully right a few wrongs on Saturday from that one, but no, training pretty focused on what we want to achieve this week and how we're going to try and do it, and boys are really switched on. And
you've got some good boys on that side though.
Really good squad, I mean, young and keen, and a couple of the older stalwarts, come back. Like Fergie's really committed. Richard Ferguson, obviously, he's our captain this year, and he's really committed. He lives in Glasgow and has done for the last 5 or 6 years. His fiancée, and building a life over in Glasgow. But he's made a decision this year that he comes down and works out an office out of Melrose on a Tuesday and a Thursday, so he can train properly. And obviously travels for the Saturday. And Bruce Colvin dropping back from the Super 6, which is obviously a great experience. He's played a lot of first 15 rugby, and obviously running his own electrical business now. He's obviously pals with Dale through work, and he's really decided to focus on his company, focus on building his business up and playing for the club and giving something back. But the young talent is really good, and the numbers we've got training every night, we've got 50 odd boys every night, and there's difficult conversations that we need to have with players that are not picked for both squads. There's some really good players that we have to leave out the Storm team as well, because they're only allowed to take 23. But we've got a good affiliation with Earlston, as you know. Roy Barry's down there, the head coach, and local club with us. A lot of close connections with Earlston. So we've sent probably 3 or 4 boys minimum every week down to get game time with them, and obviously help them out as well. So good squad. As I said earlier on, a couple of key positions probably just lacking, but that'll come in time.
I think a lot of people have been really pleasantly surprised at how quick it's taken for the Melrose team underneath the Southern Knights, after a lot of the players went to the Southern Knights, how quickly you've been able to rebuild and rebuild with quality with these youngsters coming through from the Wasps.
Yeah, it was obviously going to be a transition period. Our squad was obviously decimated with the Southern Knights starting up, which was always going to, and dropping down into that one was exactly what was the right decision for the SRU took at the time, because it gives a chance for these club teams to really be competitive. And I think we've built a squad, but it's kind of almost come naturally. Obviously Jono was involved when it first sort of happened with the club team and Southern Knights started, and had a good young squad then. But we've guys have come at kind of the right age. They've come out of junior, semi-junior rugby and moved up, and a couple of guys locally have come across, and I think we've just got a good gel just now. And as everybody knows in rugby, it's the off-field stuff as important as the on-field stuff, and they've got that. There's a squad of senior players there that are running that side of things really well, and obviously Rob Moffat coming back as director of rugby with Colin Meagher, and Bruce Ruthven, a Melrose man as well. We've got a really good core of just Melrose boys there now, and they all want the same thing and for the love of the club, really.
Obviously, take the Gala Melrose side out of the way, the excitement that's building around both towns. We are just focusing on ourselves this week. It's another game. It's a massive game, but it is another game, and it's just another week that we prepare as usual. We've looked at Melrose, we've looked at ourselves. It's funny, Dale saying that we beat Watsons by 50 points, that we must have played well. On reflection, we've looked at that, and it's probably our worst performance of the season. So we've been really honest with ourselves this week on terms of performance, and we know we need to be a lot better this week if we're going to compete with that Melrose side that'll be hurting from a loss at Highland.
The whole buzz about the club and the seriousness of how everyone is taking this is really apparent.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I went in there, and Fraz has done a great job with Fish and Bill Noble. Like Dudsy touched on the off-field side of things there, that there's a great bunch of boys down there that have got, there was a 24-hour cycle for Cash for Kids a couple of weeks ago. There was a car wash for Cash for Kids. There's a darts night coming up. All the off-field stuff is brilliant. The boys take great pride in what they do off the field, but on the pitch as well, the training pitch. Again, we've got great numbers coming through. If you look a couple of seasons ago, they didn't have an under-18s, they didn't have an A-side. They've got an under-18s back now. We've got an A-side competing in the same league as Melrose Storm. Numbers at training are brilliant. The sessions are really good. And I say, in terms of rugby-wise, really excited to work with this bunch of boys. And yeah, we've probably had an easier start to the season than Melrose. They've played Highland, they've played bigger. We've still got these games to come. We've obviously got Melrose this week, focus on that. But you look at the next 4 games, Melrose, Carther, Highland, bigger. It's a massive 4 weeks, but we just need to take it a week at a time. And this week it's Melrose, and it's another game. It's another win that we need to grind out.
I'm glad you mentioned the A-team as well, because they're unbeaten at the moment, as are Melrose Storm. And I think as a warm-up to the match on Saturday at 1 o'clock, the two of them go head-to-head. So we've actually got a nice double-header. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, the A-team are unbeaten in the games they've played. We unfortunately had to call the game off, the first game of the season, due to not having numbers.
That's right.
I can't remember exactly what the reasons were, but so we've got a 28-0 loss for that. But in terms of the games we've played, unbeaten. Melrose Storm unbeaten. So yeah, look, Saturday at the Green Yards is a 1 o'clock Melrose Gala game, and then at 3 o'clock there's another game, Melrose Gala. It's going to be a great day.
And again, a nice problem to have is to, who are you going to put on the park?
Yeah, exactly. As Doddsy touched on, it's difficult conversations every week with these guys. That they're all young guys. They all want to play rugby. They all want to play the highest level they can, and unfortunately everyone can't do it. You need to have a squad of 20 for your firsts, and then your squad of 23 for your A side. So it's difficult conversations every week, but guys understand that when they get their opportunities, if they take them, they'll kick on and play for the first. So it's good times down at Gala.
And it's all about building into that mentality, isn't it? That you have to, if you dropped 1 week, then don't take it badly. Just work hard in training and get back in again. Make sure you get back in.
Yeah, exactly that. It's a one club mentality that you can't focus just purely on your first 15. It's a whole club. There's 40, 50 guys training, and we've all been there. I've been there where you've had to play for the seconds. I'm sure Doddsy's definitely been there as well, and Dale. You get that conversation. You go down, you do your best, and then you move back up to the first if you play well enough.
Yes, that's probably brought back some sad memories for you, Dale, isn't it?
Sorry, Dale. Didn't get this was a roasting.
But what about your prediction? Because you're the man in the middle. You'll be in the commentary box with Bruce Aitchison this week, and Kelly Mitchell as well. And it's on paper. It's going to be a cracker, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's teed up at this stage of the season to be a really interesting fixture. I think it was the same with Hoyt Jed last week. It was difficult to predict because Jed started to look like they were really going to kick on, and I abstained from predicting anything on that day. So I might do the same just now, but after that for Jono I might just say it's going to be a Melrose win. No, it's going to be a difficult game for both sides, but I do like the way that both clubs have went about their business. Melrose have got a point to prove now. I think after the last few weeks, I think they'll be wanting to push on. It'll be really, really tight, but I think if I was to lay my hat on the line, I think it might just be a narrow Melrose win.
Okay, well, as we're on the National 1 subject at the moment, Kelso should get back to winning ways, you would think, at Megatland. They're playing Boroughmuir.
Yeah, again, Kelso have kind of flirted with being one of the competitors this year, as we spoke about earlier in the programme as well. But they'll be wanting to really try and put in a performance, get back into the mix, because there's still a lot of rugby to be played in this league campaign. A lot of things can happen, a lot of things can change, and they'll almost be like one of those like Heriots we mentioned before. If they're not there or thereabouts at the end of the season, they'll certainly have a big say who's going to be, the runners and riders for promotion come the end.
In the Premiership then, Hoyk going away to Musselburgh. We'll have a camera at Stony Hill for that one, and that's going to be interesting because Musselburgh have blown hot and cold, but I think they've got their main players back now, and they'll be welcoming the challenge.
Yeah, I think especially against a team like Hoyk, if they're trying to get results. Hoyk haven't travelled far too well this season. They've kind of, they've got that win against Aberdeen on the road, but apart from that, they've not really pushed on that much in terms of fixtures away from home. So difficult place to go. It's a very difficult ground to go to, quite hostile with the crowd. And I know Graham Patterson as well. He's a very structured coach, so he'll have a game plan in mind to try and overturn Hoyk.
Ryan Nixon will be at that one. Robin Purdy going to Jed Forest against Curry. That's a tasty looking fixture.
Yeah, I don't know if that was a curry pun there, Stuart, but it's got a difficult one for Jed. They really need to find the balance and direction now and use their players well. I feel like they are. I hope I'm not being too unfair to them, but they really lacked a bit of direction. I felt on Saturday they were kind of flat to watch, and I feel that if they can get their players striking, they can get them really into the game and dictate play. With Gary Monroe, I was quite impressed with him at 10. I think that will be something that will work for them. But if they can really enforce themselves in the game, they'll be a team that'll make life difficult for Curry.
Not going to be easy for Selkirk. They're away at Glasgow Hawks at Bulgrey.
No, Glasgow Hawks again. They've played well this season. They've certainly put in a good performance down at Mansfield when we were there a few weeks ago, but we just came up short in the end. They've got Brims, who's been scoring a lot of points this season for them, so they've obviously got point scorers there that are going to make life difficult for Selkirk. But you start to feel Celtic are starting to claw back into it. I don't feel like we've really seen what Celtic can do because of all the injuries they've had. But that's just the way that the cookie crumbles. They need to make sure that they go and play these difficult fixtures with a depleted squad or not. They need to front up and try and get a result. They'll be hurting after last week because it certainly was a game that they could have won.
Peebles, as we've mentioned, have got Gordonians. That should be fairly straightforward for them. So we'll go to National 3. And Berwick, of course, have had a lot of bad luck with games being cancelled or postponed, should I say. Last week's one, Drossen Aki's was off as well. And now, off the back of that, they go to Hillhead Jordan Hill, who are unbeaten.
Yeah, it's again, I think the lower down you get in the leagues, I think the more competitive they become and they blow hot and cold. I think it might be a bit to do with personnel as well in terms of interchanging, but Berwick have had two close defeats, but they'll be a team that will be really wanting to get back into the hunt for promotion. A really competitive league up the top there. Hillhead Jordan Hill is a difficult team to play. It has been in the past. Players change, but the club fabric still remains the same, and Hillhead Jordan Hill will be a big robust pack, you'd imagine, with a few ball players in behind as well. So difficult for Berwick, but they've put in some good performances this year, and they'll be hungry to try and build on the good performances they've had.
Not a good week last week, as we mentioned, in the East League. Earlston don't have a game this week. That's the way it works with the uneven Division 1. But Langham and Hoyt-Lindeen both back at home again, and they'll be pleased at that. And you've got Langham playing Leith and Hoyt-Lindeen against Inverleith.
Yeah, two difficult ties for them. I think the main one there is looking at the Langham game, thinking that, after the back of a heavy defeat, and having to try and get back on and try and realign their kind of guide this year, because they really want to push on in that division. They've got an opportunity to do there, because it was a big defeat. It kind of came out of the blue for everybody. I didn't really see that coming, but they're going to have to try and get back into the swing of things and pick up a win.
And the other match is Duns, who are away to Royal High, who are flying at the moment. So we wish Duns the best of luck in that one. That's going to be a tricky one for them. And that's just about it for this week. I'd like to thank Graeme Dodds and Stuart Johnson. Of course, Dale, as always, for being with us. Don't forget our commentary match, Melrose against Gala from the Green Yards. And certainly looking forward to a good match there. But we'll be back in 7 days' time. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.